some ways, Dan Brown fans can expect what they're used to with Inferno, and we start with Robert Langdon in trouble, as usual. He is in hospital in Florence, and he doesn't know why, because the last thing he can remember is being in Boston, where he lives. So how he's got there, he doesn't know. And he wakes up with amnesia. The doctors discover he's American. They assumed he was British because, of course, he's wearing his Harris tweed coat and loafers, which is what we Brits all wear all the time. And then suddenly a woman comes into the hospital, starts shooting at people, and he has to run away. Then he finds a secret pocket in his jacket containing a mini projector, which he has to look at, and he projects an image. It's an illustration by Botticelli to Dante's Divine Comedy, and someone has messed about with it a bit, and there are various clues in it that help him find what he has to find in this book. The memories materialize slowly, like bubbles surfacing from the darkness of a bottomless well. A veiled woman. Robert Langdon gazed at her across a river whose churning waters ran red with blood. On the far bank, the woman stood facing him, motionless, solemn, her face hidden by a shroud. In her hand she gripped a blue tainia cloth, which she now raised in honour of the sea of corpses at her feet. The smell of death hung everywhere. "Seek," the woman whispered, "and ye shall find." If you read even quite scholarly biographies of Dante, they often read like Dan Brown novels because there are so many secret codes hidden away within the text of the poem. But Dan Brown doesn't go into the text of the poem in too much detail, really, here. It's not like the Da Vinci Code or the Lost Symbol, where he's looking carefully at the text of the Bible or decoding the symbols in Leonardo's paintings. And actually what we find here is that there is an evil genius at work who is using the Divine Comedy to pinpoint clues to what he's up to. And it turns out that this is something rather different from what we're used to in Dan Brown. So we're not really looking at an ancient hidden conspiracy here that Langdon has to identify. In some ways, Inferno is something of an improvement on Dan Brown's previous tomes. The quality of the prose is a bit better. If you look at how Sophie Nouveau is introduced in the Da Vinci Code, for example, Brown seems to be trying to break some kind of Guinness World Record for how many mixed metaphors he can stuff into a sentence. Here there is some improvement, but it's not great prose, and it is a little distracting, as are all the endless trivial details about the buildings that Langdon is running past. And if Dan Brown reminds me of anyone, it's sort of David Brent when he's on a date in the office, and instead of talking to his date, he just recites trivia the whole time, and you do feel Dan Brown is the David Brent of the thriller writing world. Even the initials are the same, and as Dan tells us, there's no such thing as coincidence. And I just feel that he could have pruned some of those trivial details. It's highbrow trivia, and it is interesting, but he doesn't seem to be able to put a check on it here as much as he has in previous books.